Maybe. All right, everybody, welcome to episode 85 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Duperflex. Bill, how you doing?
And I don't know. We're already starting this out, rivalry with our guests, college who we're rooting for. It's just, I'm not sure how this one's going to go. No, I'm playing. I'm looking forward to this, man. Doing all right. Happy that we're back on the air. And how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. For some reason, last Wednesday seems like it was like 5 months ago. I don't know why. This last week has just crawled by, so I'm glad to be back with you. Bill made a slight mention. If you're watching on YouTube, which we hope you can when you can, we got Kevin at the boys _22. Love that handle. Kevin, how you doing, man?
I am doing good, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. And I'm looking forward to getting some news, talking about it, and just showing why us Michigan fans know a little bit about football. I know Bill might not think so, but we know a little bit. Like we can hold our own a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see.
So it'll be fun because we got some questions on the docket, and now I feel like the Michigan guy and the Michigan State guy are just going to go opposite no matter what happens. So
we've been not getting along the whole time. So
so we'll see some debates. Maybe I'll just sit back. Maybe I'll just secretly, cheer on my Cowboys brethren over here and
great.
root for him.
Nothing going right for me
in the debates, So, but all right. So the news. I mean, interesting. This one here. Darius Geis, the charges were dropped. Listen, I'm not going to get into any of the legal stuff because if I was a lawyer, I'd have a whole lot more money. But, what, Bill, you wanted to say something. You got excited there when I
I was just like, I read it on Twitter real quick right before the show. So I'm not I saw it on like one tweet or two tweets. So I'm not 100% sure that's accurate, but I did put it on the sheet just in case. So we might be spewing garbage. Let me research that for a minute. But regardless, go ahead.
Well, listen. So whether it's a one tweet wonder or not, I mean, these are the type of things that we have to look at, and people say that people that play fantasy, especially people that play dynasty, they react and they overreact to certain things. And I think we could touch on a bigger point here, whether this actually happened or not.
There was a settlement.
All right, so there was a settlement. So, all right, that is what it is. But we're dealing with the same thing right now with Deshaun Watson. Like, we don't know where he's at. We don't know the legal proceedings. Luckily, I follow enough smart people who are actually lawyers that they kind of can give some general play-by-plays because obviously they're not in the situation. They're not dealing with the case directly. But, I mean, this is all stuff that we always have to kind of keep our eyes on. I'm sure, people are, have either run out and picked Darius Geis up already or are in the process of doing that whenever the next time their waivers roll. But, I mean, be careful. I mean, me personally, if there's a settlement and he's, able to play football again, are we, what would we really think about that? Like, I mean, Darius Geis struggled to stay healthy when he didn't have legal trouble, and who knows what he's been doing this entire time he's been out of the league. And if he's anything like me, he's been eating cheeseburgers and watching Netflix. So, that's something you have to look at. So if Darius Geis is cleared and he is able to be signed by a team, are either one of you guys rushing to pick him up?
Yeah. It's funny that this news dropped right before I came on because Darius Geis was like one of my hot take running back one picks last year. Like I had him everywhere, and he killed me. He killed my dynasty teams. I'm an anchor running back guy, so I like drafting one really good running back, and then I just kind of fill in my teams as how I build dynasty. And he was my anchor in a couple based on his ADP and kind of where he went. Like I really thought he was going to elevate himself in that offense. This is that moral ground, right? Like, do you take this guy? And I'm usually a big like, hey, I'm here to win. But I just don't know if teams are going to see that knee. He's had those knee injuries. He's had all this baggage. He's never really made it anywhere. Like, I think he'll get picked up, but I'm not rushing to it. Like, I might let someone else waste a spot or waste fab and do that. But I don't know if teams are even going to pick him up. Like, he's got so much baggage, just baggage.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like he's somebody that I would pick up if I could get him for $0 or $1, just to see what happens before the season. But I'm not going to be somebody who's bidding a lot. It's just not worth it to me because for the exact reasons that he hasn't shown it when he has played. As much as I also liked him, Kevin, coming out, and he was definitely a guy that I had added in a lot of places, and he was so likable on social media. So it's just crazy, like kind of how everything got flipped. But I still think his talent's there. It's just that, he hasn't shown it enough. So he's going to come in as like a guy. He's probably going to get suspended regardless, right? Because of this situation. So you're going to have to hold him on your roster for that. And then what's he going to be, like a Cordero Patterson situation? You bring him in and you hope he pops. And like, if not, you're the first guy getting cut. So it's worth the risk for $0 or $1 to me. But other than that, it's just, you're going to be clogging a roster, especially if, you have low roster limit in some of your leagues.
Yeah. And we were all talking beforehand about betting and making bets and what we bet on and what we don't bet on. And I mean, that's all we do in fantasy. That's all we do in dynasty is we make bets. And sometimes the bets are easy. We take good players and we know they're good. It's not really hard. But these are one of these bets that it's almost like a Powerball ticket. Like, yeah, you only throw $1 at it, but I mean, what are the odds of it actually really paying off for you? And those are the bets that I normally don't like to make. I will play Powerball every once in a while, but on my fantasy teams, I take those long shots, real long shots, and I usually just kind of avoid them. So there you go. We had, somebody I didn't think we would talk about today, Darius Geis. We got him in. So before we get to the timeline, though, FF Arrowhead over here, he got us a question. Juju or Josh Jacobs in Dynasty? So I think that's actually a really good question, considering if you look at Twitter, there's been a fair amount of hate to go around on both guys. So, Kev, since you're our guest, why don't you start us off here? Is it Juju or is it Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, you can say that. Like, Josh Jacobs' day was yesterday, right? I think on Twitter, everybody was talking about Josh Jacobs and Juju. And I actually like Juju a lot, but I'm going the running back just because now I don't know if this is PPR, half PPR, whatever it is, but I still think Jacobs is a solid running back 2 option on that team. I think Kenyon Drake is overrated at best. I thought he was overrated last year. So I don't think he cuts into his workload as much as everybody keeps saying. I think that he can still be a running back 2. Whereas Juju, with those targets, I think Claypool takes a lot of his work away, like we've talked about this year. I would, and Big Ben's arm. I know there was a video of him throwing, and someone said, "Look at that rocket," and he threw like 10 yards. I'm like, I don't know if that qualifies as a rocket anymore. Like maybe me, if I threw that, I would think that's a rocket. But I worry about that offense. I think they're going to run more at Najee. So I would probably go Jacobs because he's the running back, and you can get a better wide receiver at Juju's ADP. And even if you're trading for him and doing those type of things, you can get a better wide receiver.
All right, Bill, why is this Michigan guy wrong and why are you taking Juju?
I'm probably not. I mean, I think this is going to be a theme that you hear from me throughout the year. Like, once you hit a certain point with wide receivers, they're a dime a dozen. And
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I mean, Juju's in that pile. And so, like, I mean, if you like him because of he's young and he's shown before, I dig it. But Josh Jacobs is still RB2 in my opinion. And like, I think that, the one thing that does concern me is his usage on third down. I think they said that he had 1 target or something as a third down back, which is pretty pretty bad. That scares me that he's not even being utilized third down. And I mean, it was Jalen Richard and now Drake, who they're paying him like a guy who's going to, be used. So that is a concern, but he does show that he's reasonably efficient overall as a runner. So like, I mean, just being able to get a running back that, could be an RB2 because it falls off super quick at running back. So I'm totally fine rolling the dice with Jacobs.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it 3 for 3 here. I may be more concerned about Drake will do than my co-host here, but I mean it's still Bill has been saying it. Bill has been preaching it, and trust me, I'm in the choir saying amen. I mean, there's just wide receivers everywhere. I mean, I was listening to Dynasty Game Night. Shout out to our boy Rocky, who's the host over there, and like they talked about Michael Gallup's ADP is like 150 or 160 in Superflex, like something crazy. And it's like we've seen Michael Gallup be a wide receiver too. Now, obviously, I know things are different now. The CeeDee Lamb is there, but like he can blow up in some games, and you're getting him in the 13th, 14th round. Like that's how deep wide receiver goes. Like, tell me a 13th or 14th round running back that doesn't make you want to throw up in your mouth. Like, you probably can't find one. So give me Josh Jacobs. Yeah, I think the value will be depressed a little bit. But if you're telling me who has a better chance to be a running back 1 or a wide receiver 1, I think Josh Jacobs has a much better chance of being an RB1 than Juju has of being a wide receiver 1. And I don't even think it's close. So give me Josh Jacobs. I mean, I'm definitely a running back or more valuable than wide receiver guy just because of scarcity. It's the same reason why we pump up, the top 3 tight ends, because after that, it's a whole lot of question marks and maybes. So give me Josh Jacobs. FF Arrowhead, hope this helped you out. If it's a trade or something, go get yourself Josh Jacobs or go keep Josh Jacobs if you got him. So now that we did that, we're going to go to what we saw on the timeline because honestly, that's what we do best on this show. So the first one here is from Z2 at Z2 Fantasy. Give me Ryan Tannehill over Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, and Russell Wilson. Yes, I said it. We're usually dynasty centric here, but I did want to shout out that he says later on in his thread, this is only for redraft. But I want to talk about both because we usually go dynasty, but we're hitting the biggest redraft tournament in the world, the Scott Fish Bowl, SFB 11. So we have to have a little bit of that redraft mindset because if we're trying to be as successful as we can possibly be, we need to kind of change gears when we draft on that. So, Bill, let's start with you. Are you taking Ryan Tannehill over those 3 guys in redraft, and then tell me if you feel the same way in dynasty?
Man, so I think I can see where they are coming from. Do I feel like that Tannehill is somebody I want to go into the season as like my QB1? I'm not sure. I mean, he is pretty efficient, and I mean, I would expect them to be passing the ball more, so I like it. I mean, I don't recall like how much rushing he got last year, but it's at least adequate. I think I can get somebody that could a little later that might not be Ryan Tannehill, but might be like Ryan Tannehill light. So I would much rather go with a guy who can run a lot. So I think I would prefer Jalen Hurts just to see what happens because that could be a huge game changer just because of the rushing. And this is redraft. So I Burrow, I get like why you might not want him because he may not be fully back from his injury. Russell Wilson, hit or miss kind of thing. And it sounds like they're going to be rushing the ball more again this year. So I can see where, the thought process is, and I don't hate it. I think just if I'm going to grab somebody in that area, I'm probably going to grab Jalen Hurts just because of the upside that I feel like he could, if he hits, he's going to hit huge. And then I could always pick somebody up a little bit later that's not going to be that much worse than Tannehill.
All right, Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I know Toby when he saw this, and at first I was like, "Man, what are you talking about?" And then I looked at it a little closer, and I'm kind of with Bill, like in terms of like the Konami code, Jalen Hurts, like he's probably going to get 10 to 12 carries a game, right? Like legitimately, we could see him having a legitimate rushing season this year, where you're like, man, he got 10 carries this game, kind of like Kyler Murray does at Arizona. And you see that with those RPOs and everything that they're going to run there and read options. So I was looking at it like, I like Hurts, but he's boom or bust. He's pretty big boom or bust, and their ADP is really close according to 4for4 for a redraft. So to me, I think Tannehill is a safer play in terms of if you want to draft one of those guys, whereas Hurts is the ceiling guy. And I'm a ceiling guy because I like to gamble, like we talked about. Like I love it. That's how you win, especially in like the Scott Fish Bowl. You're going to have to take something with so many people in there. So, and even in regular redraft, that's where you're at. But to Bill's point, I would probably skip Tannehill anyway and take like Kirk Cousins, who's going 10 picks later, like as QB 20, just based on value. Like that's probably what I do. Because if you look at last year, like Tannehill finished as QB 7, but Kirk Cousins finished as QB 11. So there's not really a discrepancy. There's only 3 or 2 points per game difference in their finishes. So like there's not a huge discrepancy there. So if I'm not taking Hurts, I'll just wait. Then I will take Kirk Cousins later and just kind of roll with him. That's kind of how I look at that.
All right, Bill. So before I give my answer on this question, I need to learn how to do graphics because I want to create a Kirk Cousins counter that we could just – because we keep zinging Kirk Cousins on this show. We love that man, and we
it's
put
not
him
a
up,
bias on my part either, being a Spartan.
We put him up as much as we can. I joked around with Rocky again. Rocky's getting a lot of love on this episode too. In the DAP chat, I said, Rocky, hey, you got to stop saying so many good things about Kirk Cousins. I don't want people to start drafting him higher. I like getting that Kirk Cousins a little bit later, so don't talk about him as much. But then we end up every week kind of getting a Kirk Cousins shout out on, and it's usually not from us, even though we both love him. Usually our guests are pro Kirk Cousins people, and trust me, it's not someone that not a question we ask before we have guests on the show, but obviously
it's part of the questionnaire.
We find like-minded individuals. So Ryan Tannehill for redraft, I actually like him a lot. I would like him above everyone except for Russell Wilson. And I know everyone's going to say Russell Wilson is hit or miss. Yes, he is. I think in Seattle, and this may be crazy talk, this might be hot take-ish, but, I think they're going to try to pass the ball a little bit more. I mean, they used their first pick on a wide receiver with DK and Tyler Lockett in-house already. Which is kind of strange from a team that always talks about, we want to run the ball. We love to run the ball. We're just going to run the ball some more. So I think they may have seen that, when Russ was cooking, they were winning. And then when Pete Carroll, for some reason, said, I don't like all this passing, and they toned it down, they lost games. We'll see what happens. So, I mean, I think I would put Tannehill in front of Hurts and Burrow, not Russ. In Dynasty, man, like I could make a case because he's proven with, just one wide receiver, just with A.J. Brown, he could be a top 10 guy every year. And now he's got Julio, who, I mean, this isn't Julio 10 years ago, but he can still do some things on the field when he's healthy. Big when, but when he's healthy. So I could make the case because I don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to be, a starting quarterback in 2022. Joe Burrow, I think he could be a stud, but God, I hope that offensive line is at least adequate. I'm not going to say good because that would be insulting good offensive linemen, but adequate enough to just keep him upright and keep him from getting injured. So yeah, I could see Ryan Tannehill in that situation for dynasty. For redraft, I'd still take Russ, but I mean, I kind of like it. You know, I saw that first, and I kind of did what Kevin did. I was like, man, what is this? What is he talking about? And then after I sat down and really thought about it, I was like, you know what? I kind of get it. Like I can see where he's coming from, and you can make the case semi easily about why you would take Tannehill over all of them, even in redraft. So, you know.
So I didn't answer the dynasty part, but for me, that's Burrow by a mile. He's the guy I'm gonna want out of those four for dynasty. Like, and it's actually not close at all.
Yeah,
Kevin, you hear this Michigan State guy over here?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go there too. I will say, I just wrote an article for Patron for Dynasty Rewind, and I looked at Tannehill and I said, this actually is the time to sell Tannehill. Like, his value is probably as high as you can go, except for the first 5 games he plays the Cardinals, Seahawks, Colts, Jets, Jaguars. So he will have a good 3 or 4 games there. So his value might tick up a little bit. So if you're willing to wait, but he's getting traded right now. Like, him and Tyreek Hill just got traded for Trevor Lawrence and 2 firsts. If you're rebuilding.
Yeah, that's a beaut.
You get a piece like Lawrence, and I found on DLF if you're on it, it's a great resource. And then he also got traded straight up for Deshaun Watson. So obviously a rebuilding team and a contending team, if you can get a guy like Deshaun, that's kind of how you dynasty. So like I think his value has started to creep up to where in dynasty I'm going to look to unload Ryan unless I'm a contender. Unless I feel like I'm right there, like I have him on a contending team and I'm going to keep him. But I think that now it's time to sell Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's actually a really good point because, I mean, his value right now is higher than his performance last year. And so, like, what are we expecting on top of, that? So if you can get more than what you could last year, just do it.
Yeah, I mean,
again, just like Kevin said, you go to one of those guys that's in the 18 to 20 range that is like being drafted later than they ought to be.
Who would one of those guys be for you, bro?
I'm not going to get into that.
Is it a former Michigan State quarterback, possibly?
It might be.
It might be. Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that.
David or Derek Carr, whatever his name is.
The Carr guy. All right. So this next one is from Thomas Christopher at ThomasCP_NFL. I'm planting my flag on this. Cam Akers will not be an RB1 this season. Book it. He says, book it. We got a lot of people kind of going against the grain this week, and I like it. So Rocky's probably cheering from his chair or his car, wherever he's listening to the podcast, because he has been on the, hey, Cam Akers might be a little overrated train. I think he's actually the conductor of that train. But Kevin, why don't we start with you? Are you buying this, or are you all aboard Cam Akers?
I have my foot in the water for Cam Akers, but I'm timid because I think that his ADP has creeped up to like 111 in redrafts. And so you're drafting him as your running back 1. And that worries me because I liked it better when I could get him as a running back 2, because I think he's going to put up running back 2 numbers. Like, he won't disappoint you at that running back 2 price. But this kind of has shades of like Miles Sanders at the beginning of the end of the first, like last year. Like, oh, well, we know Sanders is going to get that volume. We know Sanders is going to get that. So I'm hesitant to say that he's going to be a running back 1, but I think it's going to be very close just because of, if you look at what McVay did with like Gurley, and I know Gurley was really good, but when you looked what he did, he was a workhorse, and he said, hey, we're going to have a running back 1. He didn't split time. He's not really a coach that splits time. And I think last year, if Akers wouldn't have got hurt, it would have been the same thing. He would have gave the ball to Akers, and you looked at what he was able to do. I think that he can still do that. Malcolm Brown's not there. Darrell Henderson is there, but he's more of a change of pace, red zone guy. He'll vulture some touchdowns from Akers, so I do worry about that a little bit. But I'm timid. I don't like where he's at right now. So I don't think it's as book it solid as my boy Thomas pointed out on Twitter, and he gave you that. But it's very close. So I don't know if this is a hot take, but it's clearly it's a lukewarm take.
All right, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I could see there being a lot of these second-year running backs. I said this, I think, on Junkies, and when we were on there, and I could see where there's some second-year running backs that people are surprised that they're not as impressive as, we hope. And I think that a lot of that is hope. And what Kevin said about the being the bell cow, like, I hope that's the case. I mean, we saw it at the end of the year. But I always get really hesitant when we see players at the end of the year performing well, whether it's because they've been off, so they're rested going up against tired defenses. I'm always worried about that. We've seen it year after year where the guy blows up that last part of the season. Kenyon Drake a couple of years ago. I mean, that was a huge one. And last year, everybody was like, not everybody, but like a lot of people were on the Kenyon Drake train going into the season. And, we saw what happened. And it was just he came in, rested. He hadn't played much, and then all of a sudden he just smashes. So Akers kind of gives me that vibe a little bit. It worries me somewhat. I mean, I would argue, of course, that he's more talented than Drake, but at the same point, I can't bank on what he did at the end of the season. So, and Henderson is a concern. So, ultimately, I think, he, based on the amount of touches he's going to get, I think he should be an RB1, but I don't think anything will stun me it wouldn't stun me if he's not.
So if you're watching this right now, I want you to get real close to your
So
screen.
Put me on the fence, I guess, right?
If you're watching this right now, I want you to get real close to your screen. If you're listening to this, put this up to your ear. Thomas Christopher, that man is right. That man knows what he's talking about. It sounds hot takey when you type it on Twitter. But listen, Cam Akers, yes, he blew up last couple games of the years. Then he went into the playoffs, blew up in the playoffs. But guess what? Darrell Henderson was doing the same thing before he got hurt. He was pretty much doing what Cam Akers was doing. And I think Sean McVay, he got himself a little Matt Stafford. He was like, I need to upgrade the quarterback. They drafted 2 wide receivers, including Tutu Atwell in the second, which I'm not going to comment on that. But, they still have Van Jefferson from last year. I think there's going to be a lot of passing going on. I think that, Sean McVay has not been able to keep in his love for Matt Stafford. He's calling him a bad MFer. He's, he can't even keep it in his pants when he talks about Matt Stafford. So I think you're going to see a lot more. Well, yeah, it was out of your pants for a while in Detroit. Unfortunately, he couldn't take you to the promised land, Bill. But I
mean, I'm not blaming him.
That's a good point. But I think I think they want to pass even more. I mean, they've kind of built the offense to pass a little bit more, and I do think it's going to be a split. I mean, I know what Todd Gurley is, and Todd Gurley during his peak was Hall of Fame. Now, if you're telling me you think that Cam Akers during his peak is going to be Hall of Fame, okay. I mean, I can listen to the argument, but I think, while Cam Akers may get the majority, I think it'll be more like a 60-40 or 65-35. And if, like Kevin said, Darrell Henderson is vulturing those touchdowns, that could cap him a little bit. So, yeah, I think there are a lot of guys who don't have the obstacles in their way, including some second-year guys in that class that could peek into the top 12 this year. So, yeah, I'm with Thomas Christopher here. I don't think it's going to be an RB1 season for Cam this year, but hey, who knows? Maybe Cam proves me wrong, and he puts it in my face. But I don't think it's going to happen. So let's hit the next one here. It's just fantasy at it's just fantasy _. Am I the only one who thinks John Brown is being slept on right now? The quick answer is no. But considering I think the last 3 podcasts I've listened to, I think I've heard somebody talk about John Brown. So I don't think people are sleeping on him. But what do you guys, Bill, we'll start with you. What do you guys think about John Brown this season with the Raiders? Is he someone that you might be looking to acquire, or is this somebody you're just kind of like, I'll pass?
Well, I don't think his price is that high, so I think that he's a guy that I'm willing to take, a chance on. But yeah, I mean, God, I don't even know how to answer this question. Like, I don't think he's being slept on because I think everybody's so down on Ruggs and so down on Edwards to a point that people are going, oh, he's got the job because Ruggs struggled a bit last year, and I think that that's probably a good thing if you're looking to add one of these young wide receivers. But I don't know. I don't think he's being slept on. I've heard more people talk about him in a positive light because we saw him do it last year. That I think that the people that are being slept on are the other receivers.
What about you, Kevin? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at this and I was like, I think Henry Ruggs going to get more involved. Whatever Brian Edwards, I know that the analytical guys love him. So, and I don't know anything about analytics, so I'll be the first to say, hey, that's cool. But I think that he's going to get a little bit more play there. And I think they look at those vacated targets from Nelson Aguilar. And like Peter Howard always talks about, the vacated targets aren't real. And it's kind of to the point, though. It's legit. Yes, Aguilar got 82 targets last year, but that doesn't mean John Brown's going to get half of those targets. That's true. He's got to earn those things. And Waller's going to be there still. And I was looking at, before we went, I was looking at the ADP of who you could get in startups. I think I'd rather take Tyrell Williams from Detroit just because of, hey, you know what? You get a guy that maybe Jared Goff can find. I don't know if you're going to be able to find him. He's 29. He's not a terrible wide receiver. He might actually be the leading target getter on that team if with Hawkinson there. So you realistically could maybe see more targets from Williams, whereas Brown's got to earn a little bit more. They have draft capital and other wide receivers. Really, the only draft capital in Detroit is Amon-Ra, and he's still going to be battling Tyrell Williams, who's going to get a starting nod there. So I would actually probably want to take it, but that makes me want to throw up my mouth too. None of these options make me excited. I'm not saying they're going to win your league, but I don't think anybody's really sleeping on John Brown. I think everybody knows about John Brown, but I'd rather take Tyrell Williams. And now I'm going to go drink a little bit of some Coors Light or something.
And you get him for nothing. You can literally get him for nothing. So yeah, I don't hate that actually.
I actually want to make 3 or 4 separate copies of what Kevin just said. And then we'll just replace Tyrell's name and we'll put another Lions wide receiver name in there. Because literally I think there's 3 or 4 guys on that roster that could be the leading target getter that Jared Goff can maybe find.
It's going to be DeAndre Swift.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, you might be able to say that about Brashad Perriman or Amon-Ra St. Brown.
You're not going to say, I will. Hey, this might be our Trey Sermon, but the opposite direction.
Oh, listen, I would never in my life put any kind of stakes on relying on Brashad Perriman. That's for dang sure. I'm just saying, you got a whole bunch of, you could throw all those names in the air, catch one out of the sky, and they could do the same thing. So, I mean, the Lions wide receiver core is interesting to say the least. But, going back to John Brown, it's been funny. I've seen this tweet the last few days, and I don't know if somebody started it and now everyone's just picking up and going with it. But, there's not sleepers anymore. This isn't, 2005 where it's not a ton of people are doing work in the fantasy football space. Maybe it's Matt Berry and a couple other guys, and that's it. Jokers like me have a podcast now. You end up talking about everybody at some point. We talked about Tyrell Williams. Right, I mentioned I mentioned Brashad Perriman. Like, these are guys that like we know about, and we may not be highly versed in all their ins and outs, but John Brown is to say he's being slept on, would be like he's some undrafted free agent, out of North Dakota State that nobody has ever heard of that comes out and catches 50 balls. Like John Brown, could be wide receiver 1 in Vegas. And I think a lot of people can, build a narrative to that and build it kind of easily. He takes over the Nelson Aguilar role, blah, 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 blah. I do agree with Kevin on the fact that I do think the Raiders are going to try to get Ruggs and Edwards more involved this year. Obviously, they used the first and a third round pick on those two guys. So obviously, those are not picks you want to see just sitting on the bench or being decoys in a game. You want to, try to get them involved and try to get them as a part of your team. So, is John Brown being slept on? No, but let's face it, nobody's being slept on anymore. I mean, during rookie season, we're talking about the Nico Collins and the Dwayne Eskridges of the world. Like we talk about all these guys at one point or another. So no, he's not being slept on, but honestly, what do you think his high end is? Like a mid to low end wide receiver too. I mean, I think that's his ceiling. I don't think he can really creep into wide receiver 1 or high wide receiver 2 territory just because, I'm probably going to bank on him being injured a couple games. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, if he even got close to a wide receiver 3, I would be kind of shocked. Just because I have more more ideas of like rookie. I really feel like Ruggs is going to do a little bit better there. I think Waller's still going to lead that team at targets. So I'd be very surprised if he was there. But to your point, we really need football back because I remember this time last year we were talking about Joe Reed from the Chargers, weren't we? Like, he's going to be that breakout guy. Everybody's, you got to draft him, and then Joe Reed had 10 catches. So I think we just need football. Like, I'm dying right now. Like, I got to get some new content because when I start seeing these tweets about John Brown, I'm just like, I gotta log off. I can't do it. Like, I almost tweeted something out today. Like, we argue about wide receiver 3s and running back 3s so much that it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Like, when it comes down to it, these aren't the guys that are going to be winning your championships. They're just not.
So you're not arguing about the Wayne Gallmans of the world.
No.
not how you like to spend your time, huh?
This is why I like Debbie, because I could talk about college guys and at this time and start talking about prospects and stuff. Like, it's way better than talking about John Brown. Like, it's just
well, that's why maybe we just need to have Debbie guys on for like the summer.
There you go.
Like until August,
Hey, we're struggling too. Like, don't get me wrong. We did a mascot show the other night. Like, we're dying inside too.
So Kevin, since you were talking about mascots, who has the better mascot, Michigan or Michigan State?
Oh my God, there's not even a question in that one.
I will say Michigan State's mascot's kind of overrated. Like, we just, have you met a Wolverine? Like, a Wolverine would eat your ass. Like, a Wolverine is legit, like, mascot. Michigan State, you guys got a good mascot. Like, you're all right.
The literal mascot is much better at Michigan State than Michigan's.
Yes.
Like, Michigan's mascot is like a bear or something. I don't even know what it is. So, like,
that's fair. That's a fair point. You guys have like
like a Wolverine would probably eat like a, human, but like that's okay. Like, but yeah, just as a mascot, like, there's some really bad mascots in the Big Ten. Like, I would say Sparty is one of the better mascots out there.
Look, there's a lot of bad mascots all over college football. So.
Like, Syracuse is like just an orange. So like, Penn State's is awful. Like the Bucknut, like that's ridiculous. So yeah, there's some bad ones. All
my Penn State followers, that's at Super Duper Flex. I do not.
It's like literally like a onesie that I see at a rave Like that's what it is. So like
Brian Harr's gonna drive to Detroit and whoop your ass, man. I'm just telling you right now.
he knows I'm right. He knows it. Har, I am fucking right. So
Ooh, boy, Brian Har, I do not endorse this message.
looks like a teddy bear from like 1950.
Oh man.
It does look a little messed up. I'll be honest. Like when you see that thing, it's a little scary looking. Like, and not in a good way. Like, you're like, hey, did you get hit? Are you roadkill? Like, what is happening to you right now?
They've been using the same costume for over 100 years.
Yeah, they'd use it with Joe Paterno. They just never left it. They're like, oh yeah, we started this tradition, and now we're just gonna keep rolling with it.
Yeah, that's right.
See, Kevin, we can get into mascot talk too. I mean, listen, we won't even talk about whatever Ohio State has going on.
That's what I'm talking about. The Bucknut. Yeah. That's just the weirdest thing.
Ohio. Who else has got? Wisconsin's is no good.
Yeah, it's a badger.
I mean, but the costume itself is terrible. I mean, a badger could kind of be badass if you wanted it to be, but I mean, that costume they use, takes all the badass out of it. So maybe one day, Bill, we'll do a mascot ranking show. We'll
I mean, I think we just did.
No, we just did the Big Ten.
I'm not gonna lie though, I do love those mascot commercials sometimes. They can do some pretty good commercials.
They can be funny when they want to be. I will admit that they can be funny when they want to be. All right, so now that the mascot segment of the show is over, let's hit the next one here from Dan Turner at Eagle Dan FF. We're going back to the Rams. Matt Stafford is going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback this year. Kev, we'll have you go first because we know Bill is going to agree his Detroit Lions love is just too much, even though Matt Stafford is now on the LA Rams. So we'll let you go first. You buying this? You selling this? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think he'll be a QB1, but I have him more in like the 10 to 12 range. Like, I think I like my rushing upside with my quarterbacks, and with what you saw last year, I really think that's kind of where we're going to be in that top category. Murray, Allen, Mahomes, Aaron was in there in the 4, and then Russell Wilson, kind of, Deshaun, and then you had Tannehill, Brady, those type of guys. I think Lamar will jump back up. I'm actually kind of on the Lamar train. I like Stafford, though. I do think he's a low-end quarterback one. I was high on him last year, and he burned the hell out of me. So I do have a little bias, I'll be honest, because I was really high. I've been high on him his whole career, but I really thought he could finish as that high-end QB1 last year, and then that whole thing just crumbled. So I do like it. I just want to be hesitant on that. I think he can be, but I'm going to put him down in the lower tier of those quarterbacks just because of the rushing upside.
Kevin, I like how you didn't want to put bad karma on him. You didn't mention Dak in the QB1 discussion, but I'll mention him because he's gonna, as long as he stays healthy, he's gonna be up there. He's probably gonna be a top 5 guy. So
I agree. I think Dak could be a QB1. That's my hot take.
I mean,
with all the volume, I mean, there's a very decent possibility. So like if he's throwing 700 passes, like. With
that defense, he's going to have
trash. The defense is trash.
He's going to have to.
Yes.
Every week's going to be a shootout when you play the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care who you are. Worst team in the league is going to put up a bunch of points on that defense. So, but I think, this is one of those things where, yes, I think Matt Stafford has the ability, and I think he's going to be part of an offense that could propel him to be a top 5 quarterback. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to happen. I've been with Kevin. I love Stafford since day one. For some reason, there was like a 5-year period where it was like cool to call him trash. I don't know why, because he always produced. But like you said, the Russian QBs, you got Mahomes, you got Josh Allen, you have Kyler, you have, Dak can run a little bit, all those guys I think, occupy, the top 5 spots. If Lamar kind of bounces back a little bit, he can, he's proven it before. But I do think Matt Stafford can be in that, like, 8 to 12 territory. Like I said earlier, I think they're going to throw a ton, which is one of the reasons why I'm a little bit lower on Cam Akers. But, they, Sean McVay finally has like the guy that he feels like can unlock his offense. So if that's true, if Matt Stafford is that guy and he's not just kind of building an offense to hide Jared Goff's weaknesses, yeah, I mean, they took Tutu Atwell in the second round. They signed Deshaun Jackson, so obviously, like part of this offense is going deep and with guys that can not only have speed but can get open. I think the chance is there, but I don't think it'll happen. I think he's more in that 8 to 12 territory. But I mean, if Matt Stafford can stay healthy, man, you are going to love having him on your fantasy team this year. All right, Bill, tell us how much you love Matt Stafford.
So I don't think he'll be a top 5 quarterback. I think that the way that it's going to be set up is like he would have to be like an uber efficient, like high volume quarterback to do that, just because he does not run the ball. And like the reason he was able to do that with Detroit back in the day was A, there wasn't as many running quarterbacks, and B, they were a terrible team with a terrible defense, and C, Dak Prescott. And so you do that. He doesn't have that situation going in with LA. Like he has good defense. Games are going to be, there's not going to be as much volume as I think that maybe you think, Josh. Like at least that's the way I see it. Like I think there will be less volume passing. He may be efficient, but he's going to have to be like crazy stupid efficient to end up being a top 5 quarterback. So I mean, he'll be who he is. Like he's going to make that team better. I have zero doubt, because he is a very good quarterback and he can make every throw, but I just don't think he's going to have to make as many throws every game. They take the lead, they take air out of the ball, and he's not getting all those passes. So like they might be prolific in efficiency, but I'm not necessarily sure that you're going to have enough volume for him to consistently put up the points that you need to be a top half, QB1. So, but I have little doubt that, he is a QB1 overall, just because he's probably one of the best quarterbacks that doesn't run.
So I was looking this up while you were talking because, I thought it was interesting the point you brought up about the amount of passing attempts. So last year, the Rams had 590 passing attempts. Pretty good amount. Now, if Matt Stafford can stay healthy for 17 games, I mean, is 620 really out of the question? And then at that point, what can Matt Stafford do with 620 passing attempts?
So I think, yes, that's unlikely. And the reason I say that I think it's unlikely is because he's going to be, the ADOT is going to be so much further down the field, and they're not going to be all these like little dump passes and all of that you expect out of Jared Goff. So like, I think we're going to see a much deeper ADOT. And so I think we're going to see less passes overall because of that.
Now, last year, Matt Stafford was 12th in the league with 528 passing attempts. So even if let's bring it down a lot, I just said 620. What if it's just 550 with the way Sean McVay runs an offense, which is going to be a lot nicer than whatever the hell Matt Patricia was trying to pull off last year. I mean, I don't think he'll be top 5, but I at least want to kind of bring up some of the numbers where we could maybe see him getting into that top 5-ish area. So, hey, Bill is I think Bill's just going the other way because I made fun of his Lions love a little bit. He didn't want to seem like the Matt Stafford guy, but yeah, I mean 550, and actually, funny enough, Jared Goff had 552 attempts last year. So
Yeah.
if we think he's head and shoulders above Jared Goff, I mean, he might be able to do a lot with 550 to 560 passing attempts. By the way, I still think it's going to be more than the 590 they had last year. So
I think it'll be close. I think it depends on touchdowns, right? Like, I think Michael Clay, I think had him at like 24 or 25, somewhere around there. I think if they can get up to 30, I think he could start sneaking his way up topper. But if he stays in that 25 to 28 range or 27 range, I think he's like 10 to 12. So I think it's going to be touchdown dependent a little bit for him.
So, and he had 26 last year.
Yeah.
And that was with him missing time during certain games. And he was in, he was out. So, Jared Goff only had 20 last year, if I'm reading this correctly. Yes, I am. 20 last year. So,
so bad.
But it's amazing because you're talking about, like Russell Wilson had 558 passing attempts, 40 touchdowns. Like, and I'm not saying that Matt Stafford needs to be at that like 550 and 40, but man, like Josh Allen had like 37, 38. All these guys that are approaching 600 passing attempts are above 30. So like you said, Kevin, I think 30 would be where he would need to be at to think about being in that top 5 territory. So we got this one here from Britt Sanders at the FF Sandman. Which handcuff do you want in a redraft league? We got Tony Pollard, Alexander Madison, AJ Dillon, or Gus Edwards. So there's no Lions in this one. So Bill, why don't you go first? Which backup would you want out of these probably for the highest ranked handcuffs?
Yeah, so I mean, I would be definitely picking a player that is not a handcuff to one of my running backs. So first and foremost, so let's say I have none of the starters. I mean, I love Pollard. Like, I just think in that offense with that high volume and his efficiency, like, I really like him. Madison, he didn't necessarily show up sometimes. So, like, that, I kind of rule him out. AJ Dillon, still an unknown. So, really, for me, it's between Pollard and Gus Edwards. Gus can be kind of standalone a little bit. But if something happens to Dobbins, I mean, he is the guy. Granted, he's not going to catch a lot of passes, so that's going to bring me right back to Pollard. So for me, I think it's Pollard pretty easily, even though he's third in this poll, but close to first and second. But I do have a bias. I've always liked him. I've drafted him in so many leagues. He's on a lot of my teams. I just feel like if he gets the opportunity, he has shown that he can put up some serious points. So, I think it's pretty much Pollard pretty easily for me.
All right, Kevin, you're
welcome, Cowboys fans.
You're gonna go with Cowboys on Tony Pollard, or you got another take on this?
No, because I think Tony Pollard's overrated to an extent. Like, if Zeke goes down, Tony Pollard's a smash guy. So, like, to Bill's credit, yeah, he's 100% correct there. And I do think he's going to get more receiving work, even though McCarthy's offense is a pain in the ass. And I don't know why they don't use him more in the receiving game. Even Zeke, but Zeke gets too many targets. Stop giving it to Zeke. Give it to Pollard. That's whatever. Well, I'm not going to go to the Cowboys. I could talk crap about the Cowboys all day and McCarthy, but I'm going to go Gus Bus. And the only reason why I like Gus is because I think his ADP is drastically low. The last time I looked and I saw it, he didn't play more than 50% of snaps last year, yet he still got 17 basically from the 10-yard line to the end zone, 17 more carries than J.K. Dobbins. So he definitely gets it in the red zone. When Mark Ingram left, you saw he had 24 red zone carries and 5 touchdowns after Mark Ingram's not there. So they do like to give it to Gus in the red zone. They really look like that. And what's sad is those 24 red zone carries was exactly the amount Miles Sanders got last year. So Gus, weeks 8 to 17, got the same amount of red zone carries that Miles did the whole season. So I do think they give it to him in those red zones. He averages 2.6 yards after contact, which is puts him out there with Chubb and Henry. So when you're thinking of these names that you're hearing with Gus, I think he's the most valuable kind of standalone guy. That he's kind of like, he could be a running back 3, kind of like Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Like if you're in a pinch and you need a flex guy, you might start Gus and hope he scores a touchdown. If you're in a deeper league, hey, maybe he'll get those red zone carries. And he's going to eat into Dobbins. Like I feel like I don't like to handcuff my running back. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. Like I really don't. I try not to. The only exception I might have in redraft this year is if you draft Dobbins, because of Gus's ADP being kind of so low, it's almost worth it to grab Edwards. Like you almost have to kind of target Edwards towards the end because if he gets hurt, Edwards is a smash play, obviously, but they still have value.
So I'm mad at both you guys because I didn't know how to go between Tony Pollard and Gus Edwards, and then both of you guys made really good arguments. So now I'm stuck in the same spot as when I first read the question.
So you're going AJ Dillon?
Yeah, go AJ Dillon. Let's give us our AJ Dillon take right now.
All right, so AJ Dillon, he's got big quads, and that's the breakdown of AJ Dillon.
I like big quads.
Listen, everyone's got big quads this time of year, man. You'll get a picture of every running back's quads by the time August comes around. But Bill, I think you made good points on why it's not Madison and why it's not Dillon. Dillon is just too much of an unknown, and let's face it, Green Bay really likes Aaron Jones because they had a chance just to vault AJ Dillon right there, not re-sign Aaron Jones, and they did. So obviously they like him a lot. Alexander Madison, you hit it on the head. There were games where you thought he was a smash play. He was going to be a RB1 for the week, and it just didn't pan out. Man, and I was back and forth between Tony Pollard, and I have a special spot in my heart for Tony Pollard because
he has a star on his helmet.
No, actually not because of that, because of fantasy.
I'm teasing
you. He got me into the finals with his amazing performance against San Francisco, where he went for like 79 on the ground and 69 in the air or something like that, 3 touchdowns. Every time I looked up, Tony Pollard was doing something. And Kevin's right. It's infuriating when you watch the Cowboys offense and you're like, let's just let Zeke sit on the bench for like a series or two, and let's just let Pollard kind of bring some energy into this thing when it gets a little stale, but that doesn't happen. All right, I'm gonna go with Kevin. I'm gonna go with the Gus bus. I'm gonna get on. Let's take a ride on the Gus bus. And it's because I think he has some of that standalone value. I think he can have weeks where even with J.K. Dobbins playing, that he can be a good flex play, maybe even be an okay RB2 for your team. And I don't think Tony Pollard has that unless Zeke gets injured during the game. And at that point, you probably didn't start Tony Pollard anyway. So what's the use, you know? But I like both guys a lot. And that was a hard one for me because I was like, I was hoping you guys would agree on someone and then I could go the other way because I like them both equally.
And the poll was pretty close between Pollard, Madison, and Gus Edwards. Or I'm sorry, Dillon and Edwards, not Madison. So Dillon and Edwards were actually higher than Pollard. So I don't know. I think Madison's still kind of running. Or no, AJ Dillon. God, I'm effing this up. So AJ Dillon, I mean, let's actually talk about him for a second. Like,
let's do it.
Do you like? He's exciting. He's interesting. You know, Williams isn't there anymore, so like he kind of falls into that spot. But Williams was much more of a pass catcher. So like, what's his role? Like, I mean, is he going to be the between the 20s guy? And then, you know, but there's Aaron Jones. So like, what does he offer you without Aaron Jones being hurt? And that's my concern. And he's not a pass catcher. So like, I think he's automatically out in this regard because of that. So, I mean, what do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think what you're right. It's like he's going to be, hey, if Jones goes down, I think he's a legitimate running back one upside. But without Jones being there, you think he gets 10 touches a game? I mean, with Jones being there, excuse me, he probably gets like 10 touches a game. I can't see him getting any more than that. 10 to 12, he might break a run off, but to me, he's a 10 touch, 50-yard guy, if that. Like you might be lucky with that. That could be his ceiling. I like Dillon, but I'm surprised that he's a little higher than Pollard just because of the PPR and just the targets and to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bill nailed it. I think he's like for the Packers, he's the break glass in case of emergency running back. Like Aaron Jones goes down. All right, we got A.J. Dillon, and, we might feel confident in that. But, what is he going to do with Aaron Jones on the field? I mean, I think Kevin might even be a little optimistic with 10 to 12 touches a game because Aaron Jones can do everything. He can run, he can pass catch, he can pass block. I mean, so yeah, I mean AJ Dillon is going to be out on the field. It's not like he's going to see 0 touches, but I just can't imagine there being a whole lot of, plays or packages that are built around AJ Dillon. So now, who knows? This may all change if Aaron Rodgers gets traded and they got Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater or Jordan Love playing out there. They might end up running the ball a lot more, but as they're constructed right now,
Drew Lock.
Listen, who knows what the Packers are going to do in this situation? So, listen.
Like, I don't even know. What's your thoughts on Drew Lock, Kevin?
Okay, so I don't want to be like shunned by you guys. I like Drew Lock. Like I did last year. I thought he showed some things last year, and I took him as like my third QB in a lot of Superflex leagues because he was so late. And I figured, hey, what the hell? If he can do that, I think he's going to win that job though. Like I think people I'm not a big Bridgewater guy. I never really have been. And he's such a safe play, like check down Bridgewater. There's not like a ton of things he's going to do. So I think Locke will win it and he'll come out. And if he doesn't do well, then Bridgewater's going to be there. But
I agree.
Locke was a very good college quarterback. Like he touchdowns. He has the arm and the ability. The biggest thing to knock on him coming out of college was his head. Like, could he read defenses and did he make stupid plays? And so far, he's proven that to be perfectly like that. They hit that on the head. Like that is exactly him.
Spot on.
And I think that he didn't go to necessarily the best coaching staff, the best kind of organization for him to go to, but he's got talent there. But that severely limits all those Broncos players that I love so much, like Sutton, Judy, all those guys are so limited by their quarterback play. So I would love for them to get Rodgers, and I'm sure everybody in your division up there would love for Rodgers to leave too. So that'd be a good idea for them. That would be great for fantasy purposes.
Oh, no doubt.
See, and that would actually be Bill's fantasy because not only would Aaron Rodgers be out, but then Drew Lock would be in, and that would be the best of both worlds.
Oh my God, how glorious would that be? He'd probably thrash the Lions. So what am I saying? So.
We might not see Bill for a couple of weeks. He just might go on a historic bender, and we might be out Bill. So. Kevin, if that happens, we may need to call you in from the bullpen and host a few episodes because Bill will be out here just partying in the streets.
Yeah.
Drew Lock is
I'll pop in just for like 3 seconds and I'm back on. So
he just got a 40 in one hand and just like, hey guys, Drew Lock's the quarterback of the Packers. Talk
Mad
to you
Dog
later.
2020 Kiwi Lime in one hand and some St. Ides in the other.
God bless you, man. So yeah, but barring that, like I don't really see what AJ Dillon is doing. Getting back to the point, but yeah, I mean, everyone. It's funny. AJ Dillon is he's a player that has pretty much pissed everybody off every year because we were mad last year when he got taken in the second round because we were like, well, Jamal Williams is still there and Aaron Jones is still there. What are they doing? And then this year we were like, oh, well, they were smart. They're going to let Aaron Jones go. And now they have A.J. Dillon. And we saw him in that one snow game where he looked, pretty powerful and looked good. And then the Packers were
towards the end of the year.
Yeah. They were like, fooled you. We're going to re-sign Aaron Jones. And now everyone's like, what the hell are we doing with A.J. Dillon? So
well, they had to if they wanted to even have a chance at signing Rodgers or getting him back again. I mean, not signing him, but.
I mean,
what a debacle of a couple of years between the draft and the situation for the Packers. It's really tough for them.
I mean, listen, Kevin knows, our franchise gets made fun of a lot for dysfunction and the way ownership does things and all that stuff. But man, I mean, how do you have Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Famer, MVP, Super Bowl champion, and he's like, "Hey, can you draft me a wide receiver in the first round?" And they're like, "You want a wide receiver? We're going to draft your backup. How about that, buddy?" You know, you know. It's the same thing I was ranting about last year when Houston decided they were going to trade DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of chips and some practice time on a high school field. I mean, like,
don't undersell David Johnson.
Who? Who? David Johnson? They love David Johnson.
He did really well last year, didn't he?
They love David Johnson so much that this year they decided to sign Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay, and Rex Burkhead. That's how much they love David Johnson.
Hey, don't be hating on my boy Philip Lindsay. Easy on my guy Lindsay.
I love Philip Lindsay, but he literally went to a place where players go to die.
That's fair.
I mean, when he was freed from Denver, I was so happy because I was like, a team is going to take him. They're going to treat him with some damn respect, unlike Denver did. And then it's like he signed with the Houston Texans, and I said, well, I can't love you no more because they ain't never going to love you like I do.
David Johnson was RB16 in points per game last year.
Listen,
I'm not gonna, I'm not arguing that David Johnson was a great add to the team, but low key he was a mid RB2.
But we're not talking fantasy. We're talking.
No, I know, and I'm just explaining that just so it be, even if we're ripping on David Johnson, don't completely throw him out. Like he could end up being a waiver wire player for you this year.
But you know what, Bill? I'm glad you said that. Everybody who's listening, you cut that clip out if you have David Johnson on your team. And when you go to sell him, you pop that clip of Bill talking up David Johnson. And maybe you could turn that third round pick into a second and rob somebody.
The next 5 shows, Josh is going to be like, and Bill says David Johnson is an RB1 next year.
And listen,
putting words in my mouth.
I only say what you say. You believe that points per game, David Johnson will be an RB2 for you.
I said that's what he was last year.
Well, you're hyping him up, so it makes me feel like you're kind of feeling the same thing for this year.
Oh my gosh, fake news.
I don't.
What time is it?
I don't hype up these players.
It's about that time.
It's about that time. So we hit all the high notes. We got through all the questions. Bill got to proclaim his love for David Johnson. Kevin, we want to thank you for being on today. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Kevin.
It was good. It was good seeing a Michigan guy flex on a Michigan State guy. Why don't you tell everybody where you're at, what you're doing, and where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at DuBois_22. It's a little homage to my Cowboys, but also my grandpa, who was a big Emmitt Smith guy. He passed away a few years ago, so that's kind of like my homage. I won't change it. It's going to stay that forever. So
that's awesome.
That's kind of how that is. You can find me there. I'm big in Devy Fantasy Pros. I'm the featured Devy writer. I have another piece coming out this week. And you can find my Devy videos on YouTube at Triple Play Fantasy. And I have 2 podcasts, the Devy Royale with Jeff Bell and Christian Williams. It's Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern. And then I also have the Super Fantasy Bros. It's a little Mario themed Dynasty Redraft podcast the same night, Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern.
Cool.
So make sure you're checking that out. Kevin is a smart dude. He drops knowledge. He's just fun as well. And I'm happy to say that your grandfather had great taste in running backs because Emmitt Smith was that dude. So on that note, thank you to everybody who was in the chat. We appreciate it. When the chat is lit, it makes the show that much more fun. We had a question or two from there. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. And it's not only us. If you're following the DAP Network, the Junkies have been going live. Sometimes you'll catch the Trade Addicts pod with Outhouse and Rocky. Probably have some other stuff going on here and there. So, when you hit that bell, you know when it's happening. So you can pop in, say what's up, laugh at us, ask questions. If you're doing it on your podcast directory, just make sure you've hit subscribe and make sure you leave a rate and review so that we can get out there and we can get in front of some more eyes and some more ears. And on that note, Bill, we are out of here.
Late